I wanted to share the story of one of the most amazing Greatest Generation heroes that we've come across yet. A guy named Louis Millett. You probably never heard that name before. We certainly hadn't before researching this video. But boy, is he a fascinating character. In fact, we've done nearly 300 videos in the past 6 months, and I'm confident in saying that we haven't come across a more amazing Greatest Generation hero that most of us have never heard of. And if you've seen our videos, that is saying something. We've profiled a lot of extraordinary people. There's so much to this guy, I have to start from the very beginning. He was born in Maine in 1920 and grew up hearing stories about his grandfather who served in the Civil War and his uncle who served during World War I. He's inspired by them and actually becomes a member of the Maine National Guard while still in high school. I mean, who does that? By the time he graduates high school in 1940, war has broken out in Europe, and clearly he's itching to get into the fight. He enlists in the Army Air Corps, and after going through basic training, he actually becomes despondent because all he's hearing on the radio from Franklin Roosevelt is how the United States will not be dragged into the war in Europe. So what does he do? The guy actually goes AWOL. With a buddy, he hitchhikes to Canada and joins the Royal Canadian Army, where he's immediately sent to London to become an anti-aircraft gunner. Now keep in mind, he's not even 21 yet. This is pretty gutsy stuff for a kid. So it's December 7th, 1941, the Japanese attack us at Pearl Harbor, and he wants to fight for his country. So what does he do? He walks into the US Embassy in London, turns himself in, and is assigned to the 1st Armored Division of the Army. That's how desperately we needed men, evidently. Now stay with me now, there's a long way to go with Louis. So Millett ships out to North Africa where he's an anti-tank gunner. It's in Tunisia where he literally turns into G.I. Joe. He sees a burning half truck. That's one of those vehicles with the wheels in the front and the tank treads in the back. That's full of explosives with a dozen soldiers near it. He jumps onto this flaming trunk that's about to explode to high heaven, puts it into gear, drives it away from everybody, and then jumps off just seconds before it goes kaboom. Now, if that's not enough, he picks up a machine gun and shoots down a German plane. All in a day's work for Captain America here. And oh, by the way, he earns the Silver Star for his heroics. If the story ended here, he'd be a legend, but we're not even close to done. This badass has 2 more wars to fight. By the way, the Army hasn't forgotten about his desertion. While fighting in Italy, he's actually court-martialed, and then get this, he's promoted to a battlefield commission. I believe it's the only court-martial promotion combination in World War II history. I could be wrong on that, look it up, but I think that's the case. I mean, I love this guy. So as if he hasn't done enough, after the war, Louis Millett actually joins the Maine National Guard again, and in 1949, he's called back to active duty. He's sent to Korea when the war breaks out as part of the 25th Infantry Division. It's there where Millett leads Company E in a charge against a well-fortified enemy position on a hill, and after 2 days of intense fighting, Millett and his men are pushed back down the hill and pinned down by enemy fire. He knows that he needs to get to higher ground or risk getting wiped out. He also knows that the North Koreans believe that the US troops aren't willing to get engaged in close combat. He saw that in some intelligence reports. So what does he do? He proves them wrong by ordering a bayonet charge, putting himself in the front and leading the way. The Battle of Bayonet Hill, as it would become known, would be the last major American bayonet charge ever. True story, look that up. During the fierce fight, Millett personally stabbed 2 enemy soldiers, throws a bunch of grenades, and then clubs and bayonets his way through more enemy fighters as he leads his men forward, all the while dodging enemy-fired and friendly grenades. One of them explodes near him, leaving shrapnel in his legs and his back. Eventually, he and his men fought their way back to the top of the hill, suffering 9 casualties to the enemy's 100. He refused to be evacuated for his wounds until the hill was firmly secured. For his heroics and leadership, Millett received the Medal of Honor on July 5, 1951 from President Harry S. Truman during a ceremony at the White House Rose Garden. And we're not even done yet. So after receiving the Medal of Honor, what does he do for an encore? Oh, he just attends Ranger School at Fort Benning, Georgia, and joins the 101st Airborne Division, the Screaming Eagles, as an intelligence officer and commands the Army Security Training Center at Fort Devens in Massachusetts. From there, he does a tour of duty in Vietnam, where he helps found a Recondo School. That's a reconnaissance commando school to train small teams in Vietnam. Now keep in mind, he's nearly 50 years old at this point, with shrapnel still lodged in his body from Korea. Millett eventually retires from the military in 1973 at the rank of colonel. He would later say that he retired because he felt that the United States government had quit in Vietnam. Some strong words. He remained active in veterans' causes for the remainder of his life and passed away at the extraordinary age of 88 in 2009. In 1952, about a year after Millett's heroics, the U.S. Air Force built Osan Air Force Base around what it considered to be Hill 180. The base erected a memorial site for the battle and has been holding a yearly commemoration there since 1994, when Millett was honored at the inaugural ceremony. There's also a road that runs up the hill called Millett Road. All I could say is, God bless Louis Millett, a true American hero.